Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from around the world. It is a great day to be alive, and we are happy to be with you today again in our Fireside Chat series. This is a series of conversation organized by the Financial Center for Sustainability Lagos and the Nigeria Climate Innovation Center to spotlight very important issues that affect our daily lives and that, if properly addressed, can help us to achieve the sustainable development goals. Just to announce some house rules, whilst the conversation is going on for the next 60 to 90 minutes, I'd say that both the guests and the attendees should help us by turning off their mobile devices. And if you are not a speaker, please would crave your indulgence to also turn off your video so we can manage the bandwidth very well. That said, it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague and partner, the CEO, Managing Director of the Nigeria Climate Innovation Center, who is my co-host in this Fireside Chat series, Mr. Bankole Oloruntoba. Hello, Bankole. All right. We can hear you.
Hello, EE. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'd like to say thank you to all of our guests for joining us today, and for all of our participants online. We hope that this will be a fantastic conversation. Thank you, EE. Continue.
Excellent. And I'll move on to introducing our guests and the topic. We have two very important personalities here today. We have a lady and a gentleman. I'll start with the lady. Please welcome Mrs. Kemi Ogutuga-Awodein, who is the Managing Director of Chapel Hill Advisory Partners. She is also a member of the Governance Board of the Financial Center for Sustainability Lagos, with responsibility for the issuances and investments thematic area. She is also the chair of the Transition Committee of the Nigerian Debt Market Development Program set up by FMDQ, and she has been at the forefront of the issuance of several financial capital market products to finance infrastructure growth and development in the country. Her institution is a proud member of the Principles for Responsible Investment. Mrs. Awodein, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Just one correction. It's Chapel Hill Denim Advisory that I'm Managing Director of, but thank you very much for the introduction.
And thanks for the correction. Dr. Nicholas Igwe is our other guest. He's a man that I find excitingly and interestingly, personally, to introduce because of his background. He's a scientist of repute, a chemical engineer that has worked with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in South Africa and has won several awards. He came up with the patented artificial liver assist device using polymer membranes for the encapsulation of hepatocytes, and he was given an award for that. So that's a very significant award. He's won awards in African water leadership in 2015, 2017. He's the founder of Zenith Water Projects Limited. He's also the national coordinator of the organized private sector in water, sanitation, and hygiene, otherwise known as OPS WASH. Join me in welcoming Dr. Nicholas Igwe. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for having me, and thank you so much, everybody, for making that time to join this very interesting interaction.
Okay, fantastic. Our topic today, x-rays the opportunities in an otherwise unpalatable reputation that we have what opportunities do we have in being the world's worst country in open defecation? It speaks to, turning around the challenges in water, sanitation, and hygiene into opportunities for Nigeria by leveraging secular economy initiatives. That's the explanation of the topic. Can we look at something that's supposed to be very, bad, that gives us a bad image, and turn it around for our own good? Is there a silver lining in this particular cloud? So the two speakers we have will be responding to questions from Bankole and I to tell us about these two issues and how we can turn them around to opportunities and create jobs and boost our economy. So we're going to start by asking Mrs. Awodein to speak to, what our organization has done in the market as a leader in sustainable investments and alternative investment banking. So madam, can you for a start pull back the curtain to give us a glimpse of some background as to why your organization chose this path? It's one of the notable members in Africa of the Principle for Responsible Investment, which has over $100 trillion assets under management globally. Why did you join the PRI? Why did you choose this path? How does it benefit the country? Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So at Chapel Hill, I think we pride ourselves for having moved away from raising capital for the sake of executing projects, that were meaningful, but they were just projects, and have transitioned into raising capital and raising financing in respect of infrastructure development. And in doing so, we've also been cognizant and have adapted many of the ESG principles in the investment that we do. Case in point, I think for me would be Nigerian Infrastructure Debt Fund, which is the first infrastructure fund which was at the time the first infrastructure fund in Africa. And what NIDF does is that it raises money from the public and deploys those monies to projects that have environmental impact, and those environmental impacts also tail into a social, delivering a social objective. And of course, the governance for those projects are closely monitored. So things that would impact the environment, talk about energy, talk about education, talk about the case in point where we're talking about defecation, and we're talking about protecting the environment. So we've moved the needle and our pace forward to focus on projects that would impact the environment. And I think that's something that Chapel Hill prides itself on.
Excellent. So I'll turn the show over to Mr. Bankole. It's your turn to take a stab at some of the questions. Bankole.
All right, thank you very much. And also, thank you, Mrs. Awodein, for that quick explanation. So, permit me. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Dr. Igwe, you founded the organized private sector in water, sanitation, and hygiene in Nigeria. You have been within this sector for quite a long time. I mean, you have led government, you have had a few conversations, you have seen how many of this, how this ecosystem works. So can you sort of paint us a picture of what the landscape looks like with regards to wash in Nigeria? Are we as bad as what Emmanuel says we are? Because every time, Emmanuel reminds me, it's sort of like a cringe. So are we as bad as that? But can you just let us understand how the whole wash system in Nigeria looks like, and how has OPS wash also supported the growth? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Bankole, and thank you so much for having me as well. I think I'm happy that we are taking the issues of wash very seriously in Nigeria. But I heard when you said founded the OPS wash, organized private sector in water, sanitation, and hygiene. I would like to give you a little bit of background. We have a global organization called Sanitation Water for All, with head office in New York and hosted by UNICEF in New York as well. And I need to give this background to understand where we are going to, and with the discussion today. And the Sanitation Water for All has an objective, and the objective is water for all at all times and in all places. That is the core objective. But how do we get to that core objective? Because we know that the challenges are huge globally. Make no mistake, it is not only in Nigeria. We have issues in India, we have in Bangladesh, we have in different countries of the world. But before we come down to Nigeria, let's even understand the issues around the private sector involvement. Now we have several constituencies in that sanitation water for all. We have the government agencies. Right now, I think we have about 75 countries that are members of the Sanitation Water for All organization. Nigeria is a member. We have the private sector, the likes of the UNICEF, of the Unilever and other companies, and my company. We have about 48 members that are private sector entities, including Synergy of Kenya and so on and so forth, Soil of Haiti. We have the NGOs, CSOs. We have the development partners. But when you look at what I've just mentioned, it means that we have different stakeholders involved. So Sanitation Water for All believes that it is a multi-dimensional problems and challenges that we have, and we need multi-stakeholders approach to solve it. In that same manner, Nigeria obviously, yes, has a very huge challenge. And I think I will probably, in the course of this conversation, share the statistics of what it looks like at the moment. It's not good. I think about almost 23.5% of Nigerians still defecate in the open, about 46 million Nigerians still defecate in the open. And we still have a lot of diseases, gastroenteritis diseases caused by the poor water, sanitation, hygiene challenges in the country. So coming back into Nigeria decided to adopt the same principle of multi-stakeholders. And you are aware that in 2018, the president in his wisdom declared state of emergency in WASH. In 2019, I'm sure you are also aware that the president also signed Executive Order 009 around open defecation, sanitation, and water-related issues, EO 009. You're also aware that the issues around private sector and stakeholders' involvement started with the Honorable Minister of Water and Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, fellow Nigeria Sort of Engineer, where he actually started to mobilize Nigerians, private sector, to see how we can all come together and solve the challenges. So it is not about founding of OPS WASH. OPS WASH was inaugurated based on the Sanitation Water for All strategy of getting stakeholders together. So in Nigeria, we have private sector entities. We have the CSOs and NGOs under NUSAM. We have development partners. We have the government agencies themselves. And when I mean the government agencies, we have the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water and Resources. So OPS WASH was inaugurated actually. Yes, I initiated it, but it was inaugurated by the government itself because they feel that the challenges are huge. Then coming back to your question, we are facing huge challenges in the country when it comes to sanitation challenges. You are aware that about 2,780 people have died because of cholera outbreak in Nigeria in almost 30 states of the country. This is more death as compared to what we have experienced with the COVID-19 outbreak. And this is just the only recorded ones. More people are still dying, and children under the age of 5, 70% of diarrhea-related diseases, gastroenteritis-related diseases, are killing children under the age of 5. These are not recorded. So it is not good. Yes, Nigeria has taken over India in being #1 country that defecate mostly in the open places. Nigeria is #1 in the world, and it is not something exciting. However, the government has taken a drastic step. And that is why the president, again, put together steering committee where he brought people chaired by the vice president. I'm privileged to be a member of that presidential committee, where he brought people from different ministries. Governor Fayemi represented the Governors Forum, private sector that I represent, development partners is represented by UNICEF and World Bank. Because again, they believe in that multi-stakeholders approach in solving the challenges of sanitation and water and hygiene in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Igwe. I think you have brought to the fore the fact that the government is actually taking the issue of open defecation very seriously and is taking definitive step to address the problem. And that you've also mentioned that the OPS WASH is a public-private sector partnership to help to address this issue. I'll move on to Mrs. Awodein now. Madam, Nigeria and the rest of the world is still recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In your opinion, how can we ensure that this recovery is permanent, particularly as this is an area that affects human health, the issue of WASH? What is the role of the green finance market in addressing this kind of problem? The sustainable finance that we're trying to introduce and trench into the capital markets. Is there something that can be done from your point of view that can help us to address some of the issues raised by Dr. Igwe? Thank you.
And thank you very much, Emmanuel. And I think it's a very interesting question. I think one of the things that COVID has taught us is self-reliance. If you look globally, the impact and the disruption of various supply chains, given COVID, is one of the things that will enable us to harness the opportunities that the green economy can provide. So how does this impact Nigeria? I think one of the things is that speaking to recovery being permanent, that I think is a health issue. And speaks to vaccination and all that, which is not the topic of this discussion. But in terms of what Dr. Igwe has spoken about and the ability of the green economy to provide opportunities in Nigeria, I think there are many opportunities. One of the things that we can look to or we can encourage, and through the advocacy that ST4S can provide to youth or just generally in the employment sphere, is that there are a number of things. Plastics, is one of my pet peeves, and one of the things that I think can drive the economy. Just encouraging and giving people the opportunity and recognizing that there are opportunities, for example, in plastic recycling and turning that plastic into either plastic chips, bricks, toys, there's just a number of things that can be done. And how does that impact rejuvenating the economy from a COVID perspective? I think, with the lockdowns and just with the shrinkage of the economy post-COVID, we need to just avert and be more alert to what is available within our community that can provide opportunities. And these opportunities provide greening perspectives and outcomes for us. So I just think that it's important for advocacy. Without that knowledge, a lot of what is available will remain unknown.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Awodein. And it is indeed very instructive to note that, WASH presents a lot of economic opportunities in terms of water treatment, in terms of converting the waste from the soakaway in your house to produce gas, cooking gas, to produce gas for your generator, and to also produce fertilizer for farmers, and then also removing plastics from the the waterways is also another opportunity. But we'll go, deeper into that later with Mrs. Awodein, because I like the fact that she mentioned the issue of plastics. All of these things are related, if you don't know, because the plastics in the ocean, the plastics in the drainages, the effluents from your waste systems flowing to rivers that Dr. Igwe had mentioned earlier on, they all connect to the water table you're using. They contaminate it, and they cause a lot of diseases. And if we want to recover, we then have to look at how we can convert those into opportunities. So I would call on now Mr. Bankole to take on the next round of questioning.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, EE. So piggybacking on what Mrs. Awodein has said, concerning COVID-19, Dr. Igwe, I'm sure you also confirm with us that, COVID-19 sort of created a leveler for everyone, help us understand, what are the most important things for us to done, for us to be, to be done. And we know that promoting awareness around WASH is very critical. And so we want to ask you, talking about awareness, right? On whose shoulder do you think this responsibility lies, right? And what do you think can be done if we look beyond just that responsibility?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Bankole, again. I'm happy. At times, I don't know whether we should say we are happy with the issue around COVID-19, because it has taught us a great lesson. But my only problem about it is, have we learned enough? Are we just microscopically focusing on COVID-19? Are we going to broaden our minds in terms of looking at other diseases? Like I mentioned earlier on, diseases like cholera, like typhoid fever, that are related to system sanitation, hygiene, poor hygiene, and poor safely managed water facilities. The responsibility is for all. And that is why I mentioned in my introduction, that is the multi-stakeholders approach, because it is multidimensional. The challenges, is huge or are huge. Now, if you look at hand washing, for private sector organizations, during COVID-19, we lost lots of money. The global economy came down drastically, just because of something that could have been prevented if we obviously, started washing our hands, or, we're very key when it comes to the issues of, hand washing and sanitation and others. But what it did to the economy is still affecting everybody, today. So going back to that, it should be a responsibility of not only the government. The government, obviously, we need that political will coming from the government side. And as I mentioned, I think they are already doing enough. It's for other stakeholders, especially the private sector, to keep in. It's not just about the hygiene aspect, the social aspect. It's also about the economic aspect as well. We can create jobs. You can see that during the COVID-19 outbreak, people started designing different types of hand washing facilities. People started, making money, here and there. People started creating awareness, radio, jingles, and so on and so forth. I think it's something that should be done more by the private sector by looking at the challenges and looking at the opportunities. One of the opportunities, how do you design different, washing, facilities? You're already creating jobs. By looking at how it impacts economically, negatively at the end of the day. If somebody has, cholera or typhoid or whatever, it does not come to office for a week or two. Of course, it affects the growth of the company. So it's something that we have to look at. Nigeria should not be looking at this anymore. European Union are looking at other areas in terms of how to control pollution. We have a lot of NOx, nitrogen, monoxide, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, pollution in different parts of the world. But in Nigeria, we are still talking about simple things as hygiene. But of course, if you don't have facilities in different places, how do you expect people to obviously wash their hands and so on and so forth? So it's something that is a responsibility of everybody. It's something that the private sector, NC4S, should be able to also keep on creating awareness. We should not leave this for the government alone. I think the burden is also so much on the side of the government. We should start looking at challenges as private sector entities and how do we turn those challenges into opportunities, and not to keep on blaming the government for not creating enough awareness. What we are doing today, I don't think the government enforced it or asked Mr. Emmanuel and Mr. Bankole to have this kind of session. It is this kind of session that will create more awareness. It is this kind of session, having it in YouTube and escalating it to the local government side, state actors and so on and so forth, that will be able to obviously overcome the challenges. But most importantly, when I talk about challenges, I normally look at the opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Igwe. In fact, you hit the nail on the head. Nobody mandated FC4SLagos or NCIC to do this. Bankole and I have a burden in our heart and we want to ensure that we write our name on the sands of time as one of those who have taken it upon ourselves to champion these issues. But we have the full backing and support of our individual organizations and our boards. And our appreciation goes to the board of both organizations for giving us the opportunity to ventilate, to speak to issues that are burning on the top of our mind. And I'll move on now to Mrs. Awodein again. You mentioned something that's tickled my interest. You spoke to plastic. And I know in one of our recent conversations that you have a project in mind that you discussed. So can you expand on what you had in mind when you came up with the idea of a drainage army for plastics project? What did you have in mind? And what do you think, how do you think this can benefit the whole circular economy new economy that we're trying to build? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Again, we're talking about wash, we're talking about water pollution. One of the main pollutants in our waters in Nigeria, especially in Lagos State, aside from effluents, is plastics. Everything. I think there's just a vein of plastics, plastic containers, plastic water bottles, soft drinks, and the like. And unfortunately, what happens is, people are consuming and throwing, out of cars, out of buses. They end up in our drainages. They end up in our water channels. They end up, in our rivers, and they just lie there. The rain comes, and then everything, gets washed out onto the streets, and it just it's unsightly. It's destroying the environment, and science has told us that it takes several decades, centuries for plastic to degrade. The whole point of the project or the concept is to be able to empower our unemployed youths, to encourage them to collect these plastics and take them to central processing areas where they get paid for collecting the plastics. We then this plastic that has been collected then gets, for want of a better word, converted to other uses. Interestingly, this morning, I was watching the news as I got ready for work, and there in Kenya was a young lady who is recycling plastics and making bricks, which are then being turned into cobblestones. So the interlocking that we have that's made out of concrete, she was doing the same using recycled plastics. And the whole point is to one, provide a source of employment for unemployed or unemployable youth, and that money can then be used to encourage some of them to go into manufacturing other sources, plastic beads, which can be exported, plastic chips, and there's just a number of uses. And for me, plastic, I guess, is the easiest thing that we have access to, or that we have visibility of. But to start with plastics, and then you spoke about effluents and all that. Again, you see globally that where there has been research that people are turning human waste into like grains that can then go into the production of manure or for composting. So there's just an endless opportunity within that space. And again, I'm putting some of the responsibility on us at FC4S that, information is critical, information is key. If this information isn't out there, then, people are not able to generate these ideas. Unfortunately, I don't think there's an appreciation for the environment in which we live and the impact that we're having. And so, aside from all the other things that can be technical, I think we just need to come down to that granular level and introduce people to things that are easy to implement, and we see them running with those ideas.
Thank you very much. That's a very detailed explanation. And it's, for us, it makes us to understand that there is hope for the Nigerian economy, because we are seeing new shoots of opportunities from areas that we thought were, completely, if you like, useless, and turning around waste to something, to plastic waste that is blocking the drainages, to be part of what you can use, to improve our road infrastructure, and learning from our people in Kenya. That is really very interesting. Bankole, over to you.
All right, Emmanuel, I think you don't need to go as far as Kenya. You should just sit down with us at NCIC, right? Because we have quite a number of beautiful innovations and startups who have looked at, or rather ventures, I hate to call them startups now, who have found some form of innovative way of, recycling plastics in different variants. But we're very particular about recycling, which is why we're launching the Circular Business Lagos today. And I'll ask Daniel to share a few of that information for anyone who would like to join. So, Dr. Igwe, we are very particular about circularity, right? We think that circularity has a way of creating as much sustainability as possible, and also creating, a lot of opportunities around reusing any form of waste that we have created. So, around WASH initiative, can you explain to us a bit, particularly on the issue of water treatment and, some form of biogas production? Because for us, we have a few ventures who have come through our doors, who are converting, municipal solid waste, or which you can call your sockaway, or rather, your solid waste in your home, into gas, right? And then some are converting this into fertilizers. So can you explain to us in a bit for our audience out there, how does this work around, the OPS WASH program, and how do you think that we can create an, sort of like a structure, create a structure that can, that can further improve, the possibilities around circularity in WASH initiatives?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bankole again. And before I go into that, I want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Awodein for what they are doing in creating circular economy around PET bottle, that's polyethylene terephthalate. Because some years back, even I think 2 years ago, I was in New Orleans for a conference, West Tech, conference, and the issue, in fact, they were almost banning the use of PET bottle, that's the plastic, bottle, because of the same issue. And what people do not understand is PET, bottle is something that can create, that the recycling aspect of it can create a lot of jobs. If you look at the same circular economy, when we talk about circular economy, you look at the production part of the PET, you look at the usage, you look at the end of the day, it's not recycled. You might not be able to get the same quality of product that you can use to bottle water again, or minerals and the rest. They can use it for other applications. You can also blend it with other polymers and have a copolymer, a PET and another polymer, copolymer of that can go into the market. And of course, you are creating in all these value chains, you are creating jobs. So thank you so much. Then let me take on the question from Mr. Bankole. And I'm also happy that NCIC is also doing a great job on that as well. It should continue, it should not stop. The issue around is very disheartening that Nigeria, as a country of 210 million, people, that we waste our excreta of 210 million people going to toilet every day is wasted, when that is supposed to be the Nigerian gold after maybe oil and gas. That should obviously, who knows, depends on how we approach it. It might actually overtake the oil and gas sector. And we are just throwing them away. You see that Nigeria, though, was not planned properly like other developed countries of the world. where you flush your toilet, it goes to one centralized place where it cannot be treated. So, of course, it's a separation process for some of us that are chemical engineers, and you have clean water, relatively clean water that you can send back to the dams that can still be reused and pumped back to the different houses. Then the solid can now be treated in such a way that it can be dried into organic manure. It can also be used as charcoal. It can also convert it during biodigester system into gas that can still be used for different methane gas. We have a lot of our members, and I'm sure in this somebody had joined from Ohio, one of our OPS members, ESS group that also has an entity in Nigeria called GVN Environmental Services. They are doing quite a lot of work when it comes to INDR. Now we have different areas. When you look at circular economy, I want us to understand circular economy. You're building toilets. You treated water, or water is going in for you to flush. It's already something that people are already making some money out of. It is not a linear system, which is what we are still practicing today in Nigeria. Then they waste. People have their bath and go to toilets, and some, the truck will come and evacuate to an unknown destination. Sadly enough, to the water bodies that will pollute them. It's not only the issues around the challenges related to the pollution of the water bodies. It is painful because we are wasting resourceful materials. The fecal sludge is so resourceful that we can actually turn it into something else. When we talk about green economy, the green economy is on one side. There is a nexus between green economy and circular economy, and then sustainability. Then what do? You're supposed to dry the sludge. It depends on the viability of the market. Do we need gas more, methane gas for cooking? Do we need more organic fertilizer for agricultural activities? Or do we need charcoal for other activities? Different countries will obviously need different resourceful materials from that. But I can assure you that if we have private sector entities, in Lagos, for example, the Lagos State Governor has kindly put together a team that I'm a member of that team to look at the private sector engagement in this. And I'll be talking to Mr. Emmanuel after this meeting on how we can all get involved. The problem we still have is that everybody wants to be a leader. No, everybody wants to lead what you don't understand. You want to lead circular economy that you don't understand. Now, the job creation is massive within that value chain. Remember, I've said that we have the MTRs. The MTRs can empty, but how do we regulate them? It's very easy. We have Taxify. We have different technology now that we can actually install. And that is what I will go into what I'll call the enablers. But before I go into the enablers, let's even look at the system there. We have the MTR. The MTRs can be coordinated to say, okay, once you evacuate from a household, you can bring it to me. I want you to bring it to me. You can pay a small amount of money because you are charging those households to be able to evacuate. Maybe in Lagos, people pay as high as 50,000, 55,000 naira to evacuate. Come to me, pay me a small fraction of that amount of money for you to dump. Forget what I will do with it. I'm already generating revenue from those MTRs for dumping. Not only that, we are now going to process it and have clean water that can go into other uses. It's just a mindset. People already think that the water they are drinking today is different from the water that that one can get from fecal sludge treatment or from wastewater treatment. You might not be able to put a difference to two of them. Then the most important one is the resourceful material that I'm talking about. Do you know that I have in Chicago where 1.5 containers of organic manure is realized from a wastewater treatment plant? And I'm sure my friend from Ohio, one of our members, can also testify to this as well, in Ohio as well. He's in this program. So at the end of the day, we are wasting that resourceful materials. Then jobs can be created. What are the enablers? Unfortunately, political will. But I'm happy, like I mentioned before, I don't want to repeat, that the government is doing quite a lot. When the president said, let's have steering committee that has all stakeholders involved. Let's have Mr. Emmanuel. Please, what can you do? How do you support us? We are overwhelmed with the challenges. Let's have the government, Ministry of Health and Environment, let's all come together. Now, the enablers is political will. But beyond political will, there is also another one, entrepreneurial will. Nigerians are so much into, I don't want to take a risk. Oil and gas is structured. You can make money from oil and gas. You can make money from this because it's already like I said before, food that is already. Nobody wants to take a risk. So we must have that entrepreneurial will. Then the next is what? Finance. And I'm happy that Mrs. Awodein is here as well. How do we collaboratively look at the commercial aspect of this? Let's look at how much does it cost to set up 10, 20 different decentralized sewage treatment systems in Lagos so that the trust can come and dump, and how much do we generate? How much jobs do we generate? When the president said that he wants to take out 100 million Nigerians out of, to create jobs for 100 million Nigerians, he's not going to be able to do that on his own. He's relying on FC4S, he's relying on NCIS, he's relying on OPS Watch, he's relying on other sectors of the economy to be able to assist in doing that. So circular economy is very important in as much as it can create a green economy, it can obviously create jobs, but most importantly, it can create wealth. Thank you.
Wow, that was very, very, very enlightening. And so what I'm discovering from this program is that the new gold, the new oil and gas for us is waste, human waste. I was part of the climate launchpad finals in regional finals in Mozambique last week. And there's a young lady from Morocco that demonstrated how, because water is very scarce in Morocco, they are able to do that separation that Dr. Igwe mentioned in their homes, individual homes. The water doesn't just go out to the septic tank. They separate the water according to the level of contamination for reuse. It happens also in Cameroon, where water is also scarce in the mountainous regions of Yaoundé. And because we think we have too much water in Nigeria, we're not thinking about how we can make use of what we thought or what we think is waste. But Dr. Igwe has pointed it out to us that we are throwing away the baby, literally, with the bath water. We're throwing away the gold. And attention should be shifted away from oil and gas to the wealth right beneath our households. Every household in Nigeria has a septic tank. From that septic tank, there's gold, there's resource, there's wealth. So I'll move on again back to Mrs. Awodein and talk about, the fact that Nigeria, is said to be losing around 1.3% of its GDP annually due to poor sanitation. And a third of that cost is said to come from open defecation. So from a financial advisory point of view, how can we block this leakage and transform the problem into a vehicle for wealth creation? Let's speak to practical financial instruments. Is it possible to issue a sustainable instrument, a green instrument for it? Because it might interest you to know that there are entrepreneurs, or what Bankole has called ventures in Nigeria, that have actually found a way to convert these waste to useful economic products, but they don't have access to finance. Speak to this, please. Thank you.
So, Emmanuel, this is extremely interesting, and I'd like to tackle it from a number of viewpoints. So, firstly, right, financing sanitation, at the end of the day, whoever the financiers are looking for a return. Is there a return? Is there a possibility of generating a return? And as we're speaking this morning, waste, human waste, is also creates an El Dorado. There's some opportunities to make wealth out of waste. We're speaking specifically now about sanitation. For me, there are a number of angles from which this can be tackled. Firstly, for me, and again, that's not what we're talking about this morning, but housing, for example. When we look at the densely populated areas, the quality and the availability of sanitation in some of those dwellings calls into question an opportunity where, a trickle down from government to local government, we have a prototype where, no matter how many rooms you have in a dwelling, no matter how densely populated a dwelling is or an area is, there's a minimum number of toileting facilities that have to be available. So funding for that. Then there's also the fact that in the effluent that comes out of our houses, your houses, flows into our rivers. Is there an opportunity there for us to launch a green bond, a blue bond that protects our waterways, and then trickles into a sub-economy where, for example, we all know that popular saying about spending a penny. And spending a penny, right, was in the Victorian times when moving away from the Dickensian times and trying to create a cleaner environment, as basic as it was at that time, and to discourage the Victorian British people from defecating anywhere. Creating toilet facilities where people would literally pay a penny to use those facilities. Now there's an opportunity, and I don't know if initially that opportunity will be funded from the private sector, or we need to look for some development finance, or we need to look to government, where we're building these facilities around the country. And these facilities would have wash facilities and would have toileting facilities. And you'd then be able to better control the use of the water, the recycling of the water, and that can be used, for the toilet facilities. So I think there are opportunities for financing sanitation, but the principles have to be available. The laws and the regulations have to be available. Government, Ministry of Environment has to get involved. Ministry of Housing has to get involved, and we need to look for developmental finance where we can use that as a basis to introduce certain things into the Nigerian economy, and then private sector will follow very quickly thereafter.
Wow, Mrs. Awodein just, did a presentation on our upcoming program in November. Bankole, don't you think so? You're muted.
Very clear enough for me, because I think she has just given us, something to discuss for the next meeting. And thank you so much, Mrs. Awodein. So let me go over to you again, Dr. So Nigeria took, this same narrative that Emmanuel has always shared, that always gets me cringing every time he says it. But again, I will need you to help us clarify that recently we overtook India to become, among the countries who open, who practice open defecation, globally at a very high scale. We've heard from the from Mrs. Awodein on some some sort of ideas on how many of these things can be solved as it was done in Victorian English era. What are the challenges that you think that we are facing, and what practical steps do you think we need to do to overturn this problem?
Thank you so much again, Mr. Bankole. And I think this conversation, I don't know whether I will say that we have to have another session, because this is very important. And I really, once more appreciate FC4S and NCIC for putting this together. Let me also mention this. The Vice President, before we, I always look at opportunities. I'm more, I look at, when I see a challenge, I look at opportunity. Now, yes, the Washington report 2019. We're doing a bit now. Out of 774 LGS.
Good morning,
we have been able to declare 71 LGS Yes, clearly, Nigeria is number one when it comes to people that defecate in the open. Sorry, can we mute Ario, please? Thank you so much. So now, yeah, the challenges are there. Initially, when this campaign started, like I said, this is being coordinated by the Ministry of Water and Resources. The states, the LGAs, they were finding it difficult to key into this campaign. Remember, we have the social side, we have the campaign side, where we have the CLTS, people that go to different communities to talk to them about the challenges of open defecation, the social impact, the economic impact, the health impact, and others. We also went ahead to talk to some politicians to say, if you create opportunities for toilet in different market, places, like what the governor of Indo State, did there. Who knows? It might. It must have helped him for his campaign. In the marketplaces, people that naturally will not go to market when during their menstrual period or when they have any kind of stomach upset and so on and so forth. Now they can gladly go, even if they have to pay a particular amount of money to have access to the toilet. They are happy. What does that do? It creates more business activities in the marketplaces. Imagine having a toilet owned by private sector, in the market in Lagos, where people even pay like 20 naira. People will be willing to pay because number one is that it increases the business activities in the area, apart from the benefit, the health benefit, and the social benefit. So the challenges are there. However, the vice president launched Project Flush It, FLUSHIT. You can get this online. Now, what is the idea around it? And I want to key into what Mr. Awodein had just said. The idea is that we have 4 pillars on how to deal with the challenges. Like I said, it's the responsibility of everyone. We said, okay, can people adopt toilet facilities in public places? We don't want people to start building toilets for individual homes. Rather, let people adopt to say, I can say, I want to build a toilet for a school in a particular place. Though it is wrong for somebody to build a school without having toilet facility in the school. However, as Oswatch, we have been trying to do that in different schools. But somebody can say, in this marketplace, I want to build a toilet and donate. So I'm adopting that marketplace or that public place, or even motor park. We have David Alaba, who is one of us, who plays for, I think he plays for PSG now, if I'm not mistaken. And he's from Ogun State.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. He has never come to Nigeria before. And we spoke to him and he was very excited. And let him give something back to his Ogun State. We're waiting for the governor to give us sites, about 4 sites, where he will donate, adopt places. We call it sanitation adoption. We also have the tax credit scheme aspect. I'm not talking about how we are approaching the issues of making sure that we are able to build 2 million toilets every year. That is the only way we will be able to come out of being #1 position in globally, or people that defecate in the open. We need to build 2 million toilets yearly. How do we achieve that? One is adoption of sanitation by individuals, by private sector organizations, as part of corporate social responsibility that they want to, whatever they want to do. In as much as we don't have legislative framework around CSR, it is still the responsibility of organizations to do one or two things. That is one block. The other block is tax credit scheme. Remember, we have EO 007, and I'm sure FMBQ has been involved, but that was focused more on road infrastructure. We have now written to the president to say, can you amend 009 to have that element of tax credit scheme, where, like Mr. Awodein had just said, private sector are looking for return on their investment. So Coca-Cola can say, okay, I'm putting in X amount of money. As long as I'm going to get this money as tax credit within a period of maybe 5 years, 10 years period, and so on and so forth. Guinness can say the same thing. So it is now beyond CSR. So we're now infusing that tax credit scheme into Executive Order 009, which has already not been signed. And we're already talking to organizations of course, Mr. Awodein can also play a critical role in making sure that that obviously works out. The next block is the blue bond. Right? Call it blue bond or brown bond or black bond or green bond. It's just a bond. At the end of the day, how do we use that to leverage on the challenges around and look at the opportunities from the private sector point of view? The other one is Nigerians in diaspora. Luckily, we have Honorable Abike Inodagiri, who has been very supportive of the whole idea, concept of how do we end opification. So what are we doing? How do we mobilize 2 million Nigerians in diaspora on a yearly basis that will be able to adopt a toilet each? It might not take up to a small amount of money to be able to build a toilet for different places. And the last, obviously, I can see that Mr. Emmanuel is giving me indication that I should stop. But we have, so those are the areas for us as the private sector and the government as well. They are looking into finding solutions on how to deal with the ODF campaign in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nicholas. Please, if you're not speaking, kindly mute your speakers so that we can hear the guests. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas. That was a very detailed explanation. I'll move over to Mrs. Awodein. As SMEs are known globally to be the backbone of any economy, Nigerian economy is not excluded from this assertion. How do we democratize access to finance for these economic foot soldiers? Especially because of their role in secularity, in the secular economy value chain. Can you tell us about any innovative financial instruments that existing or upcoming that green entrepreneurs can leverage up to a scale? It doesn't even have to be only the SMEs. What about the big companies? Is there opportunity for something like, like a new innovative instrument that companies can use to raise green finance? Do you want to speak to that for a few minutes, please, madam? Thank you.
Okay, for a few minutes, Emmanuel, I think I'll go back to some basics, right? When we're talking about democratizing access to finance and our SMEs, for me, the most basic understanding is, being able to grant access to financial products and lessening the formalities and the barriers that are faced by SMEs in accessing finance. So cheaper finance, less charges, being able to speak with someone who can provide guidance on what's available. Having said that, right, at the moment, there's no one product that I can think of that would grant the sort of democratization that we may be thinking about on a large scale. But having said that, I'll go back to the role of advocacy and the role that FC4S can play in this regard. There'd be a plethora of SMEs and a number of business ideas, a number of entities who can provide an impact as far as sanitation is concerned, greening our economy, something to do with our waterways, effluents. There are many ideas out there. However, how many of those ideas are bankable? How many of those entrepreneurs are disciplined enough to be able to adhere to the terms of a loan, for example? So, I don't want to sound very harsh, but I think it's important for us to realize that the providers of capital, are expecting a return, and the SME entrepreneurs who are seeking finance must also themselves not want to get into a bind where they're in over their heads because they haven't understood the terms of a facility that they have been granted. So I think what we need to do, and probably through FC4S again, is to seek some sort of developmental finance and to look to the larger companies who themselves are participants in this circular economy, either from a perspective that they're the producers of products which then end up become pollutants. And I know Coca-Cola and some other producers of beverages are involved in this regard, but to look for other avenues, where we can encourage these larger entities to support some of these entrepreneurs. And then we, through FC4S, can then provide a platform for these entrepreneurs to grow their ideas. And some of those ideas can then grow into businesses. And those businesses can themselves then become enablers in the economy where other people are getting employed, other people are leveraging on that experience to themselves be able to grow their ideas and their business. So that's it for me. I think we shouldn't romanticize the interplay between finance and greening. There are opportunities, but those entrepreneurs need to be brought together, harness the ideas that's available rather than one small entrepreneur trying to do it all.
Thank you, Bankole.
Very much, Mrs. Awodein. I think I'll really have to come back to you for some quick master classes on how we can, work out some form of innovative approach, to financing, circularity businesses. Okay, so let's, aside finance, we know that finance is equally critical, and there are several other factors that sort of holds how, this kind of finance can play within the scale of, circularity in Nigeria. But let's look at that issue of policy, right? Dr. Igwe, I would really like you to help us look at this clearly. Are there, strong policy frameworks back? I know you mentioned a few things about what the president, the executive orders that the president, gave a few months or years ago. But again, with your own assessment of the existing policy, framework, backing actualization of Nigerian, WASH goal by 2013, what can you say, will be the, kind of policy that can help us achieve this, this 2030 goal?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bankole, again. I think, as I've mentioned this before, the only policy that I'm aware of was the one from the National Environmental Sanitation Policy, 2005. And I think 10 years later, in 2015, they tried to see a way to amend that, and it has a lot to do with what is still happening today. But the most important thing is the state is the state. The state themselves, just like how, as we know in Lagos, we have Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission with their own policies and all the rest. So different states with what is happening globally and in Nigeria in particular when it comes to issues around open defecation and other hygiene challenges. There are other policies that are coming up. But we do not have, as it stands today, apart from the National Environmental Sanitation policy of 2005, it's still something that the government is still putting in place. However, like I said, strengthening the state to take actions, because you know how Nigeria is structured, is very important. Different states are having their own frameworks, policy frameworks, and so on and so forth. Ogun State has something ongoing. Lagos State for sure is also in that as well. And I think at the end of the day, with that, like I said, it's not for us to wait for when policies, when we put policies in place. The most important is to look at the general impact, look at the social impact, look at the health impact, and for us to collaboratively do something together without really looking at policies. But the state, the local government, they have more to do when it comes to policies and implementation and enforcement of those policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Igwe. E, are you there?
Yes, please. Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead with questions.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Igwe, and thanks, Bankole. Nigeria was the first nation, I'll say the first sovereign bond issued in Africa was from Nigeria. We've done an 11 billion, we've done 15 billion naira. But this is a pittance, when we compare to the challenge that we have in terms of how we're going to be able to mine the sustainable investment finance or meet or plug the sustainable investment financing gap, which the United Nations Environment Program Inquiry Report of 2018 estimates to be around $100 billion by 2030. So what do you think we can do? I mean, not just only from a sovereign angle, but even the corporate and subnational. I know your institution is deep in terms of deeply involved in advising both states and in the corporate and the national on how to address their financing gap using the instrumentality of the capital markets. But we're speaking to, what Nigeria can do now. I mean, Dr. Igwe must have mentioned a bit about it, but you are the expert in terms of raising finance on the capital market. Speak to Nigeria's first 2 green and whether there's opportunity for more greens from the country and even from the corporate sector, the subnational sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Interestingly enough, we were privileged to work with the federal government in the issuance of the first 2 sovereign green bonds. And on the back of that, very quickly, we advised a bank in Nigeria, Access Bank, who issued the first corporate green bond in Nigeria, fully certified by the fully certified climate initiative green bond. The capacity for government to borrow, I think that there are competing needs within any government, and it won't be different for Nigeria. And then there's also the budgeting process. So I guess as far as Nigeria is concerned, there are opportunities to raise additional green bonds. Interestingly, it was very well received in Nigeria, both from an institutional perspective and from individuals. And this is from the investor side. We had people as far away from Lagos as Kaduna, Kano, who wanted to and did invest in the green bonds, the federal government green bonds. So I think that the opportunity there is vast. People take the question and the matter of the environment extremely importantly, and I think more and more Nigerians are keen into the fact that we need to protect our environment. We need to mitigate whatever is causing dislocations within the climate impacting events. From a corporate perspective as well, there are opportunities. I think one thing I will say for corporate issuances is that there are rules and regulations by the Securities and Exchange Commission, which makes it slightly more difficult for corporates to come to the market with green bonds, but there are opportunities. For the federal government, what is interesting is that one of the drivers for investors is that they see it as something that speaks to ethical investing, and the monies that are aggregated for the green bonds are applied specifically to the projects that have been identified. So the short answer is that there are vast opportunities. Nigeria just has to adhere to our budgeting protocols and our debt financing capabilities, but there are opportunities, and I think the Nigerian government will do much more.
Wow, thank you very much. In the interest of time, we have several more questions aligned and waiting to be asked. And I'm sure the audience also have questions they want to ask. But we'll advise you to put your question in an email and send to the email address that Daniel has displayed, I'm sure. The email address for Bankole and for my humble self. We'll be willing to answer your questions beyond this session. There's another big event that Bankole has made me aware is coming up that is of interest to us, the Secular Lagos platform. And we don't want to stop others from being able to attend that particular initiative because we are partners, we're co-travelers with those launching the Secular Economy platform in Lagos State. And we want to thank everyone who has attended this session. It's up to 1 hour already. As been mentioned by the speakers and my co-host, some of these topics we have to do a second iteration. We have to take a second look at them because they're so vast, so important, and we'll need to have more time to take a deep dive into these topics. So I want to thank Mrs. Awodein for sparing her time. She's a very busy individual in the capital market space. Dr. Nick is also super busy working with both the international and local institutions to drive the message of having a clean environment by having the organized private sector support WASH initiatives in Nigeria, and also supporting the Office of the Vice President in promoting Flush It, promoting access to clean toilet facilities and access to clean water. We thank you, Dr. Nick. And I'd like to say that Mrs. Awodein did like a quick summary of what is coming up next. So Bankole, do you want to speak up to what is coming up next in terms of what we're doing in November? Do you want to highlight it so the audience can be aware? You're muted.
The background noises of what you will hear. We are about to launch the Circular Business Lagos, and it's going to be a live event. But in November, we have another program coming up, which is focused around, innovations around WASH, and also how do we create some form of innovative model to see people will pay more attention to how, the issues around WASH, and also look at the business, viability also around WASH. Many more of these details will be shared, in coming days. It's going to be a very interactive session where we will find innovation, we'll find business perspective, we'll look at business models, and also look at the kind of activities that can help to scale WASH from either a circularity or also from a pure business perspective. But our focus is creating sustainability. Expect much more from this space. Before the end of this month, we will have another session with someone else, I believe, which our guests will also be shared to us. But between the in the month of November, it's going to be a very eventful, packed month for both FC4S and also Nigerian Climate Innovation Center, and we will share all that details with all of you. So just before we leave, or rather just before I jump off to the next event, I'd like to ask our guests if they can give us sort of a one-liner of how they see the future, the future when it comes to WASH and also circularity around that sector.
Yes, I work. Mrs. Awodein, do you want to take the first shot, the one-liner, your parting shot?
So my parting shot would be that the importance of the environment, cannot be overemphasized. The role that we play, especially regarding WASH, the impact of what we do every day, which is, it's our bodily function, right? And so everybody has a part to play in this. And we just need to try and make sure that we're doing it responsibly. We're a lot more conscious and intentional about the impact of what we're doing every day.
Thank you, Mr. Awodein. Dr. Nick, your parting shot.
I think for me is to understand the roles of the private sector as the engine of the economy, and for the financial institution to sit down and brainstorm with private sector entities on how they can turn challenges around WASH into opportunities, and to also get other players as well to be involved and not to sit out there and think that there is any magic. So I think it's a very great session, and I would like us to continue my discussions along this path. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Godwin Gwandi, I can see your hands up, but that opportunity has not been given to others. Please send your question to the email address that Daniel will have provided to everyone on the chat box. We're not taking questions in this particular session. Do we wish to communicate with you and continue the conversation with you? If you can be kind enough to send your question to the address that Daniel has provided in the chat box, we will answer your question in detail. Just to reemphasize what Bankole had mentioned, in November, we're going to be doing a major event on WASH. It's called the WASH Open Innovation Fair. We're going to provide the opportunity for young Nigerians that have innovated in this space to come and display their work, either in person or virtually. That's why we call it an open innovation fair. You have the opportunity to come and showcase your technology. People like Mr. Akpopotoro, if I'm not pronouncing your name wrongly, I see that you're involved in that process. You can come and display your own technology that you've invented. I saw that you are the CEO of Ecolu, the others here who have their own invention, come to the fair to display what you've innovated, what you've brought up, what you've created as a young enterprising Nigerian. We will help you to advertise it to potential people who want to patronize you. The details of that fair, of that innovation fair, and the webinar that we'll have on that same day will be sent to everyone who has been a part of this session. Type in your email address on the chat box. Daniel will take record of it. He's the man behind the technology. And we want innovators of different types, young and old, people who have done biodigesters, people who have done locally built toilet systems, people who have done, who have been able to innovate on new ways of treating water from the effluents that we have in the septic tanks to become clean water. People who have been able to produce methane gas that can be used for cooking from waste. People who have been able to provide charcoal from human waste. The different things that can come out of what you thought was completely useless that can make every Nigerian to become potentially rich if only we can think about it for a moment. And to tell you, as I've mentioned earlier on, it's happening in Kenya live. There are public toilets you pay to use. You just swipe a card, you can use it, and we have a cleaner environment. Issue of security, yes, we're going to provide security for those facilities. We'll be demonstrating the installation of some of these toilet facilities ourselves. We'll select locations where those will be installed, and we'll launch it so that people will be able to use them. We're going to start with Lagos as a pilot state, and then we're going to move to our partners who are supporting us by helping us move to Ekiti State and other states in the country. And gradually that becomes a habit nationwide. 774 local governments in Nigeria must have public toilet systems that will help us to practice hygiene in a very neat and efficient way that our health will be enhanced. So thank you so much to everyone. I hope to speak to you again, and I appreciate the time you shared with us. Put your detail on the chat box. We'll come back to you. We'll certainly come back to you with any question you want answered. We'll respond to you. Thank you to everyone. And once again, it's my pleasure to be your host. Bankole? Okay, he said, thank you. The launch has started, so he can be with us. So thank you to everyone, and talk to you at some later date.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Daniel. Daniel, are you on?
Emmanuel, good program. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Rio. Thank you.
Oh, that is Eugene.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Eugene. Your voice sounds like Mr. Rio. It was on. It's here, actually.
It's okay.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Dr. Itua. I appreciate. Mr. Oganemaru, sorry for, excuse me for murdering your name. You are my brother, but spending too much time in Lagos, I couldn't pronounce your name right. I want to see your product. Make sure you come and display your innovation on that day, Mr. Oganemaru. I want people like you to show what a young Nigerian can do. Thank you.
Congratulations, Emmanuel. This is Ario now.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Rio. Thank you so much.
Nice program, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. Your support is consistent and constant. Thank you. Taufik, my brother, thank you. We can see you.
Good afternoon. This is Mr. John.
Oh, thank you, Mr. John.
I joined from Enugu State.
Okay, nice to have you here, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've dropped my email on the chat list.
Yes, please drop your details. We'll contact you. I told you, please take note of all the email addresses. Can you guys harvest them? It's important for the next. It's important for the next session, okay?
It's a nice one. Join this meeting.
Thank you. Daniel and Toyosi, please harvest the email. Isabel, thank you for joining. Miss Tamara Priye, thank you. Dr. Peter.
Yes, Emmanuel, thank you so much. That's a good outcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Godwin, don't fail to drop your question. I will respond to it personally.